If this was anybody else other than Jurgen Klopp, would we be calling for his head?
It's gone from being fast to slow. The adjective has completely changed in the space of 6 months.
I love the fact we're using Liverpool as the bar now for teams that are down the bottom. Look, you're only 6 points off Liverpool.
They're 2 points off the European spaces in a season where they've lost 9-0 in a game.
Is it the time now that you just say, look, thank you for your time, thank you for the FA Cup, thank you for the memories, but it's time to go?
It wasn't his fault they purchased 4,000 players.
You now have to stick with him regardless of what happens between now and... I mean, Christmas is normally the general rule, but between now and the start of the World Cup...
Please don't go down, Villa.
Hello and welcome back to episode number 10 of Panenka Weekly. I know what you're all thinking, this isn't Rich. You are correct. Unfortunately, Rich is unable to join us today, so with the hosting duties is myself, Rory. But I'm not alone. The final member of the trio is present and available. Sean, how are you doing today, mate?
Hello, mate. I'm very well. How are you doing?
Well, I should just inform the viewers, I guess. It is currently 8 minutes past 7 on Sunday evening. We have just sat through Arsenal v Liverpool. Perhaps that's why Clates can't join us. Perhaps he is actually feeling maybe as bad as me and just thought it's actually not worth coming on and discussing Liverpool anymore.
What a time to do it. Do you remember we did it just after the Man United Liverpool game? When all that emotion is still fresh.
I mean, it's a horrendous feeling, mate. It's I just don't know what's gone wrong with Liverpool, but we will get into them a little bit more, I guess, in a few moments. Villa not yet played, so I guess you've got no mention of your own team for the moment, but Forest tomorrow. I guess you're looking forward to that one, Sean?
Well, yeah, 5 lost, well, probably more than 5 is. I'm just looking at the table now. It shows the last 5 games. Forest have lost the last 5. Obviously in a bit of a strange position, aren't they, given that they've just given their manager a new contract, which we're going to talk about in some good detail later, aren't we? But if there's ever a game you have to win, it's that. I mean, I'm just doing the maths in my head. 8 plus 3, we're on 8 points, plus 3 is 11 points. So if we did win, Liverpool are on 10 points. I'm just working. Yeah, we do. We go above Liverpool. Yeah, nice. All right. So all the pressure on Villa, because that would be nice, wouldn't it?
I mean, that is. That's some thought, isn't it? You know, we are only 2 points ahead of Villa, and we did a serious chat recently about is it time for Gerrard to go? Now, I guess let's talk a little bit about Liverpool. I assume that most of our viewers have watched the game. It was the big game of the weekend. I don't really know where to start. Arsenal continue marching on. Liverpool look as bad as ever. The formation, I don't know what it is. It worked against Rangers, but, you know, Rangers are what Rangers are. Where do Liverpool go from here? What do you think, Sean? Where do we go from here?
Against Rangers? I mean,
well,
it was
I guess from a results perspective.
Penalty and a free kick, wasn't it, against Rangers, and they couldn't break you down.
Yeah, very true, very true. And I mean, where would Rangers finish in the league? You know, I guess that might be one for another week. We could talk about where would Rangers finish in the Premier League. I would probably say they would be near the bottom, that's for sure. Yeah, did it work against Rangers? I guess maybe the result sugar-coated the actual performance, but today, again, we looked second best. We started really slowly. Arsenal started really fast. For the sort of maybe second half of the first half, if that makes sense, we looked a lot better. Thiago started getting on the ball a little bit. Nunes made some nice runs in behind, and then we give them an absolutely brilliant chance to go ahead again with some more very poor defending from Trent. I mean, he gets sucked out wide too easily, cut back inside from Arsenal, straight across for Saka, and he taps it in at the back post.
I just feel like today's performance was, how do I put it, not necessarily a bad performance from you. It just felt like you're starting to slow down. Some of your players are starting to hit that age where it's almost like they were pushing as hard as they could, and it just wasn't quite working. You could almost see the change. Arsenal, really young, really fresh coming into it. They just were faster. The quality was there. But for the first time, they looked physically stronger, didn't they? All the way to the end, even after Jesus got knocked out or whatever happened to him, he was still managed to get in between Van Dijk and Alisson at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they popped up the stat, didn't they, at the on on the coverage on Sky Sports, and they said that Liverpool's team is the 18th youngest, i.e. one of the oldest in the team, coming in. I think it said 27 years and 300 and something days. Now, you look at that, and that is a seriously old side. That's not a side really that is going to be here for many more years, and maybe this is the last year.
Yeah, especially when you've got some really young kids in there, haven't you?
Yeah,
and even Trent, Gomez, Harvey Elliott, etc. They're really quite young, so they bring that average down. A lot of your real key performers are the wrong side of 30.
Yeah, and that is a worry, isn't it? A major worry if you're Liverpool. I mean, you just look at the team today, and Salah gets dragged. I mean, saying that last season, this time last year, you would have thought you were absolutely off your head.
It's amazing how that's changed. Salah,
you don't know whether that's injury related or what, but no, go on, Sean. Salah, talk to me.
Oh, do you remember Aubameyang when he was a couple of years ago for Arsenal at the end of the season when they won the FA Cup? He looked unstoppable. And then he got that big contract, and we had a debate at that time whether or not that was the right thing. And I did say it, and I got chastised for it, but I said, given Salah that huge contract when he did, I thought it was the time to cash in. I genuinely thought it was the right time to cash in. Sometimes look at football teams like they're a bit of a business, and sometimes I feel like breaking the bank for someone at that sort of age sometimes isn't the right thing to do. And it is looking like that at the moment. He just was huffing and puffing. He was just not blowing that door down, was he, today? I'm sure he'll get his form back, but he's been through a real long patch of not scoring, not contributing. I mean, we're almost a quarter of the season in, and he hasn't really added anything.
Yeah, I mean, he was really poor today. I can't even remember him really creating anything. He had no shots, really, did he? He had the one that deflected wide for the corner, but he looked dreadful today. I wasn't surprised when he got dragged. I was slightly surprised by the substitution. I mean, the double change when we brought on Fabinho and Konate. Now, I understand maybe he was happy with 2-2. He didn't want to get overrun, but you're taking off, well, I guess you would say your main goal scorer. He's not, is he? Bobby Firmino isn't, and that was a great finish by him today.
Brilliant.
But it's so odd, isn't it? The decline is just incredible. You couldn't have foreseen it at all, and maybe that was the right time to cash in. Maybe you're right, Sean. And every player does have that peak period, don't they? I mean, we've heard at the moment people talking about, Van Dijk's peak. Maybe that's been and gone. Maybe it was just that 1-2 seasons where he was absolutely incredible. You look at Trent getting dragged off at half time. I don't know how much you read into the injury, but again, he was defensively lacklustre. Martinelli was brilliant, I thought. Praise has to be given to Martinelli. He was really good, but Trent, he's all over the place at the moment.
You've got to think, if you're any team, to be fair, in the Premier League, if you're playing Liverpool at the moment, you think Van Dijk and Trent Alexander-Arnold, I can really get at them. Even if I was Forest or whatever, I will be targeting that side, and I don't really know how it's got to that. But Trent has had so many fans, and rightly so. He has been brilliant for what he has contributed in his short career. Has been brilliant, but he is losing more and more. Well, I don't want to use the word fan, but more and more people are starting to stop sticking up for him. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I had another one today. One of my friends who really absolutely in love with him, really sticking up for him every single time. But today, he finally said, "Oh, that's another week, another mistake, another poor performance against a big team. Maybe now is the time to take him at the firing line. Maybe you just got to shore things up at the moment. When you're not scoring, you have to sometimes revert to basics and stop conceding so easily. And if you look at that team, the way to do that is to remove Trent Alexander-Arnold."
Yeah, I mean, you look at today, we had Fabinho on the bench, and he's been such a key part in the side in shoring up that defence where traditionally Robertson and Trent bomb on, and Fabinho almost sits in as a back three in between, whether it be Matip or Konate or Joe Gomez in recent years, and Van Dijk, and becomes that kind of three at the back. Well, he can't get a sniff in the side at the moment in the formation that we're currently looking at playing now. I know you were kind of very critical of him last week, and rightly so. He has been totally off the pace, but it just seems like we don't really have an identity at the moment, Liverpool. We're scratching around. It was always, traditionally, we had those really forward-thinking fullbacks. We had that solidity at the back with Van Dijk and whoever else alongside him, and Fabinho just in front. Then we had the workhorses like Gini Wijnaldum, like Henderson, and then we had that explosive front three. If you ask somebody now, describe what Liverpool are like, describe Liverpool's identity, I don't know what you'd hear back. I really don't know.
It's gone from being fast to slow. The adjective has completely changed in the space of 6 months. At the end of last season, just hitting teams so quickly, that pace. But now everybody looks slow. Even Salah today. There was a couple of times when he was running, he was sprinting, but he just didn't look like he was going at full pace. And Trent looks, out of confidence, and it makes him look slow. Henderson is a step slower than he was. Thiago's his game's not based on pace. Jota looked just looked almost out of shape a little bit. I know he showed some good quality at times, but he still just wasn't the player he was before his injury or last year or whatever it was. And they're trying to fit that extra attacker in, aren't they, to the formation, like you said. So last year or whatever, they'd almost have the hard bank of 3 in centre mid, but this year they're almost playing 2 and then an extra 1, aren't they? So today they played Diaz one side, Salah the other, Jota almost like a number 10, and then Núñez up front. And I don't think that gives the formation the correct shape when you're looking so lacklustre at the back. I think that might be part of the problem.
No, I agree. And I think the midfield 2 don't give you that enough assurance in front of the back 4, do they?
No.
It's different for a team like Spurs, who kind of only play that midfield 2, but they have Højbjerg and Bentancur, who are both quite... Well, Højbjerg certainly is very defensive-minded. Henderson doesn't necessarily do that role as well as he maybe did a couple of years ago. Like you say, Thiago's game just isn't based around that. He's based on getting on the ball, looking to spray it wide, looking to progress us up the pitch. It is really difficult to kind of see where Liverpool do go from here this season. I mean, it's getting to the point now where top 4 is becoming a real struggle.
Yeah.
It really is. Our potential route into the Champions League is looking... It's looking really difficult. Chelsea won again. Arsenal appear like they're away and gone. Spurs got another good win against Brighton, a team that we failed to beat last week. I'm just looking around and I'm really struggling to see who Liverpool finish ahead of in terms of those types of teams.
Look at Newcastle. We were quite critical of Newcastle a couple of weeks ago, weren't we? Saying they haven't won enough games. But yeah, they just 2 wins on the trot, whatever it was, and now they're 5th. They're 2 up. I know they played a game more than Chelsea, but they're 2 points behind Chelsea. So they're going to be up there come the end of the season in the top 8, going strong. And United won 4 on the trot. They've still got results in them. So you're right, it is a real worry.
Yeah, I mean, United are playing at the moment for our benefit. I mean, it's 1-1. They went 1-0 down to an early goal to Iwobi, but you could easily see them beating Everton tonight, couldn't you? And suddenly that's another 3 points that they've gained on Liverpool. I mean, let's just talk Liverpool now, and I'm going to ask a big hitting question. And I would love any Liverpool fans, any fans in general listening. This is going to be a controversial one, but comment, let us know what you think. Let us know on Twitter, whatever you want to get in touch, or whatever means you want to get in touch by. Liverpool currently sit 11th in the table. I'm going to name some of the teams ahead of them now, and then I'm going to ask a big question. Ahead of them are teams like Bournemouth, Everton, Fulham, Brighton, Newcastle. If this was anybody else other than Jurgen Klopp, would we be calling for his head?
If anyone other than Jurgen Klopp, but how much?
If this chap was called Matt Klopp or whatever name you want to use, would we be saying, God, we really need to be looking at changing things up?
I don't know. It depends, because he's built up so much goodwill. The team he inherited when he first started was nowhere near as good as they are now, and they're going through a bad patch. So he's created that team, he's created that identity, he's given you leagues, he's given you Champions Leagues, and then so 1/4 of a bad season. So I see what you're saying. If it was Chelsea, he'd be in the firing line, wouldn't he?
Yeah. Now look, I'm very much like Rich. I'll back Klopp until the day I die. The days he's given us as Liverpool fans, unbelievable. But
has he got his shelf life though? Rich himself said every manager has a shelf life.
Yeah,
and now to the end of Klopp's.
Is it coming to the time where we are saying this might be the end of Liverpool as we know it? How much of a rebuild could Klopp go through? Could we see him going, actually, look, I do need 2, 3, 4 transfer windows to rebuild this team, to move on the likes of Henderson, Oxlade-Chamberlain, even Mo Salah, maybe, we don't know. I hope not, but, players like this, sort of some of the aging players, and start bringing through some new blood. I don't know what would his appetite for a rebuild like that be. It's 7 seasons in now.
I think
Every,
one
like
of
I
those
say,
things
every
have to
manager.
happen. Either Klopp has to go, or they have to go start again and look at it as a new rebuilding project.
Yeah.
But don't cling on to this team now. I don't think. I think it's time to start. And we said it. We said it in the summer. You needed some fresh blood. You had a few injuries. Players getting older. So we did call this. We didn't think it would be anywhere like this, but we did think they would start to fall away from City a little bit. And maybe it's just a time. But if you're looking at it, you need some new superstars, don't you? Where are they going to come from? Diaz looks really good. Nunes, I think you agree that the jury's still out, even though it's really early days.
Yeah, I do fancy Nunes to come good. I really do. I see enough about Nunes to suggest that he could get a lot of goals. Now, I guess it's very unfortunate he's moved in the same summer as a man called Erling Haaland. But I think Nunes could be a very good player for Liverpool. I really do.
Yeah, I feel like he has his movement is one of his strongest assets. In that, he had a patch of around about 15 minutes today where he looked really good.
Yeah.
And he went off the board a little bit, and his finishing against Rangers was poor. So if he works on a couple of things, adapts to the league, obviously he's still a young person, isn't it? Moving to a new country, getting used to all that. I always think that's way harder than people give credit for when you move into a brand new country, getting settled in. So I do agree. I don't know for sure, but I feel like he's got a lot in him. I really like Diaz. Salah, you're just hoping he's going to come good, but then you need new centre mids. You need to do something with the defence, don't you? The defence just doesn't work at the moment. And Trent has to be fit in. Trent, there has to be a solution found for Trent. The answer is definitely not to stop him playing and moving on or whatever. I just feel like he's so athletic and he's so technically good and clever that a good defensive coach should be able to work with him and get rid of some of his problems. Some of it is just laziness, some of it is just stupidness, and they're things that you can rectify.
Yeah. Do you think that we could possibly see... I'll ask you a couple of questions here. I do think one point to make is that Kanate coming back, we saw he came on sort of very briefly today. I do think that will be a big thing for Liverpool because he has that pace, that power to slot back into the back four and maybe give some more athletic gifts. And he's another young player. He's a player that is going to get better. And maybe that might help the back four. He's been injured. He came on today, but he's been injured pretty much for the full start of the season. I think his last competitive game before this was the Champions League. I can't remember him playing this season at all, but forgive me if I'm incorrect there. It's certainly not been a lot.
I think you're right
there. But he possesses that pace, that power, that size, maybe to give a bit of... Oh, yeah, unbelievable. They're like tree trunks. He's an absolutely huge beast of a man.
Ridiculous, isn't he?
But that could help. Maybe that might be the player we need to come back and maybe shore up the defence a little bit.
Yeah, maybe, or even the midfield as well. If you purchased a really strong, proper defensive centre mid who's a bit younger and really gets about left and right, you can almost let Thiago do what he does, because I don't feel like the formation suited Thiago. It almost looked like a 4-4-2 at times today, and he's not a 4-4-2 centre mid, is he, Thiago? Whereas I feel like if you got him popping the ball around, if you get a new defensive centre mid, and then if you could get Jude Bellingham, then all of a sudden things look totally different, because you've got the strength in centre mid. You're going to retain the ball. You're going to pop the ball off a lot more. But it's just everything that you say and everything that I say, it just keeps coming back to legs. That seems to be the biggest issue.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I guess just picking up on some of the points you made a little bit earlier, that there's just so much running through my mind at the minute, I guess, Sean, and it feels a little bit like I'm speaking for a lot of Liverpool fans out here. But you look at Diaz, Nunes, let's take Salah out of the equation for the moment, but are those players that are really going to fire you to those major titles? They're good players, but are they great players? And I guess maybe Salah and Mane were in a similar situation when they came to Liverpool and they turned out to be brilliant. But it's so hard to know, isn't it, whether those players are going to be able to ever replicate what we've had in recent times for Liverpool.
Because it was ridiculous, wasn't it? Salah and Mane on their pomp, just absolutely ridiculous. For how much did they cost? 60 mil, was it, for the two of them?
Yeah, it wasn't a lot. Yeah, I think maybe 70 million for the two, but very, very shrewd acquisitions for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I look at Liverpool and I am just, you are scratching around thinking, what is the solution now? I mentioned Canate coming back. The formation does look problematic, but do we have the players to do anything else, really? It's so difficult to
No.
know, isn't it? And I guess we should maybe mention Arsenal just for a couple of moments before we maybe move on to some other topics. We could be here all night for Liverpool, and I would certainly happily bemoan Liverpool, from now till Christmas. But unfortunately, it's not making me feel any better. I'm not sure it'll make any Liverpool fan feel better that sat up
I'm
and down
enjoying
the pubs that have stayed to watch. Yeah, I'm sure you are. I'm not sure it will help anybody watching now Everton Man United play and knowing that Everton may even potentially start picking up points as well. Now they've been
Yeah,
pretty decent for the last few games, and so have United.
definitely.
But one final question and one final point before we do move on: how good were Arsenal today?
Out of this planet. They were just they everything you just said about Liverpool, the opposite was Arsenal. They
Yeah,
had the legs, they were so fast and technically brilliant, and they had a really good identity for the first time in years and years and years. You sort of know what everybody's doing. They have got that big, powerful defensive centre mid who lets everybody else play. Odegaard is just phenomenal, isn't he? Tell me a team that he wouldn't get into in the world at the moment. He is so clever on the ball. I don't know why. The one bit that sticks out to me is he got on the edge of the box. There's no space. He can't move anywhere, and yet he kind of gets snapped a little bit. But somehow he just lets the ball run through his own legs, and then he spins around. And I thought, how on earth does he get out of those positions? And he just dinks it on, and he always seems to make the right pass. And he's Norwegian, isn't he?
yes.
I can't believe they're not in the World Cup, are they? Norway. They got him and Haaland up front. Surely the future's bright for them.
Yeah, I guess I made this point a few months ago, didn't I? That the World Cup qualifying and stuff takes place so far ahead of the tournament that those two weren't quite the players maybe they are we're seeing now, if that makes sense. At the start of the campaign, and it does only take a couple more players, and they are suddenly looking like quite a force,
Really good
aren't they?
team, yeah. But Saka looked brilliant. I know his output hasn't been as good at the start of the season, has it? But he scored two today, effectively won the
Yeah,
game. Martinelli looks probably like their best player at the moment. And then you got
yeah,
Jesus and you got Xhaka looking really good. A brilliant new centre back. It just seems to be working for them. I know Liverpool got at them at times today, but you can forgive that. Liverpool are still Liverpool. They still got a lot of quality.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I thought Martinelli honestly was absolutely outstanding today. From literally the first minute, you were just like, God, this is going to be horrendous. He looked like he had Trent on toast whenever he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
You saw the one part where he out sprint Luis Diaz to the ball, gets Diaz booked because they're away on the counter attack. He sets up the goal for Saka. Yeah, I mean he's frighteningly good, isn't he, at times? And
Scoring every week at the moment, isn't he? Still only
yeah,
21. But do you know what I really
yeah,
like about the Arsenal players? They seem to they got such a maturity about them. They never do
yeah.
anything stupid. So there were points in this game where it was going really well for them, but they were still doing the right pass, the simple pass. They were never showboating or being stupid. Like
Mm,
Jesus, a player like him, just giving up penalties, playing
yeah,
a couple of times where he could have been greedy and he just wasn't, but he did the right thing. These are quite young players doing that. It's just working for them, isn't it, at the moment? And tactically, they were quite good today. We have levied
yeah.
that
I
at
mean,
Arteta, haven't we? In years gone by, that tactically looks a bit short in the big games, but he's just created a team. He's created a
yeah,
formation that works for the players that he's got, and it created a great
yeah.
atmosphere for the team, and it's just working.
I saw the lineups come out today, and I thought maybe this is the day we really see Salah kick into life. He's got Tommy Asu, who's naturally right-footed, playing against him, and then he was lifeless. And I
Yeah,
guess that's just testament again to Arsenal.
yeah. It was a
We've
big call,
spoken a
that,
little
wasn't it?
bit.
Tierney,
Yeah, it
left
was.
back, really good player.
Yeah, it was. And again, I guess we've just got to praise Arsenal. That's
Yeah.
another win, another 3 points. Liverpool play Man City next week. You never know. Liverpool maybe kick into life next week. God, I can't believe I'm about to say this. They get something off City. Arsenal win again, and suddenly Arsenal have opened up a pretty healthy lead at the top.
I
Now,
know,
I
that's
guess
the
we're going to
frightening
keep saying
thing.
this every week.
We said,
Can
didn't
they
we,
do it?
after the last 2 weeks, we said Arsenal doing really well, but they got to play Liverpool and Tottenham next two
Mm,
games. Come back to me after those 2 games, and we're
yeah,
now in that position, and they've won both.
yeah,
And
yeah,
really, they deserve to win both of them. Because today
yeah.
was a different one as well. Today really tested the resolve of Arsenal. In years gone by, they would have crumbled. So to concede twice and still keep going at them, that just shows a different mentality in that team for sure. They're comfortable winners last week, really. I know both at home and they got some hard challenges coming, but you just imagine Liverpool did City next week, Arsenal won. All of a sudden they're thinking, whew, you never know,
Yeah.
do you? Weirder things have happened when you think something's an absolute guaranteed cert. Haaland could pick up an injury. Anything could happen in the World Cup. They could come back slow in January or whatever, and who knows? Seriously doubt it, but who knows?
No, no, I totally agree. And City do always have that way of suddenly just outgrinding teams and picking up a result week in, week out, and eventually the other team just isn't able to keep pace. But at the start of the season, I think if you'd have said to most Arsenal fans, what is success this season, it would have been top four. Now I don't know what price they are. We're not, we're not in the nature of giving bookies prices and stuff like that. But I would say they're massive favourites now, aren't they, to get top four?
Oh, you
They
think
must
it's
be.
theirs to lose
Yeah,
at this point for
absolutely,
sure. But then,
absolutely.
what do we think that top four at the moment? Arsenal, City, Tottenham, Chelsea. It just looks quite strong, doesn't it? I don't see United breaking in. I don't think it's Newcastle's time yet.
No.
Liverpool have a long way to go.
Yeah, I mean, Liverpool could genuinely be out of it in the next couple of games if they don't pick up some results. I mean, they're only 6 points behind at the moment, but you then consider they're 10 points off Tottenham, who are in third. They play Man City next week. It then starts looking an awfully long way away, doesn't it? You've played
Yeah, it
nine,
does.
you've played nearly a quarter of your games, and you're 6, 9 points behind that fourth place team. You start feeling really,
Yeah.
really cut adrift then.
And you've still got some hard teams to play, haven't you? You haven't had the hardest of starts. I mean, you're going to play a couple of good teams in 9 games, but
Yeah,
you've still got to play. Am I right in saying you've still got to play Tottenham, Chelsea, City,
yeah, yeah,
Villa?
yeah, correct. Yeah, correct. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's two of the bigger sides, isn't it? Three of the bigger sides. So,
Mm.
um, I am worried for Liverpool. I really am worried for what this season is going to look like for Liverpool.
Yeah, but Arsenal looking brilliant, aren't they?
Let's see what happens next week. Maybe we will be talking next Monday, and we will be saying, "My God, Liverpool have turned it around. They've beat Man City. Haaland was quiet. What's happened?" I don't think that's going to be the case. If I had to push you now, Sean, and I guess we do have a bit of recency bias in what City have been doing and how Liverpool have just played, but give me a scoreline prediction for next week.
Yeah, it's got to
Manchester
be.
City v Liverpool.
I still like Liverpool to score all the time, so I think 3-1 City.
3-1.
But
Yeah.
do you remember? Was it third or fourth game in when you were playing United and United lost? I think their first 2 games and they were dreadful. And we said the
Mm.
exact same thing. We cannot imagine United picking up anything an uncomfortable win, and it put them on a good run.
Yeah.
So it's stupid to think, isn't it? Just after a quarter of the season of not being at their best, which includes winning 9-0
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
winning games in the Champions League. So maybe we jump to things so quickly all the time, don't we? I mean, it's part of the fun, but 1 or 2 results, and you're almost thinking about the worst or best case scenario all the time. You
Yeah.
could just go and smash City, have one of your real on days. Salah back to form, get a brace, and then it looks totally different, doesn't it? One win next week, and everything looks totally different. And you could have got a result
Yeah,
today. It was a
yeah,
penalty. The penalty,
yeah,
I think that it was a penalty, but a lot of people didn't. And Trent had made
yeah,
a stupid mistake, and you had a few chances, so you could have got a result today for sure.
yeah. I mean, you look at the Gabriel potential penalty. That could have been a penalty.
Yeah.
I have no real issues with the one that's been given against Liverpool. To be quite honest, I thought there's definite contact, and like I said, I have no real issue with that being given as a penalty. I think it probably is.
Mm-hmm.
But like you say, you never know. Next week, maybe we are the ones that get the penalty. Maybe Man City get a player sent off. You never know. And then all of a sudden we're thinking, actually, look, Liverpool have just had a massive result. Maybe that's going to kickstart them. Stranger things have happened, and I guess that's why we tune into sport every week, isn't it? Because stranger things do happen.
Yeah, definitely.
But let's move on from Liverpool. We said that we were going to touch on this at the start. We are going to just quickly run through the bottom three teams and have a bit of what we call manager watch. We're going to talk a little bit about where these three teams are at the moment, what they're doing managerially, because we kind of have the three ends of the spectrum, don't we? With Wolves, with Leicester, and with Forest. And we thought it'd be quite fun just to give a little bit of discussion around those three teams. So for a bit of background, this is basically where we're going with this. Wolves have sacked their manager. They're in 18th. Leicester have decided to stick with Brendan Rodgers at the time being, despite a very poor start. And then we have Forest, who have doubled down on their manager and granted a contract extension. Now, we'll run through those teams. I mean, first of all, Sean, what is your take on sort of managers in football? Are you one of the people that say, look, if it's not working, you're not performing, they should be out? Or do you think managers don't get enough time? Just in general terms, what's your sort of thought on the world of
they
football?
don't get enough time, but I don't really buy into this. They need years and years. I often think losing 5 on the trot is often enough. That is quite a long time. That's what happened to Villa last year. He lost 5 on the trot and he was gone. But that's the general rule, in my opinion. But for Forest, it's different. I feel like they've done the right thing there. I think he's done so well to get them up. So no matter what happened, it was going to be tough for him. Yeah. And then I'm sure it wasn't his fault they purchased 4,000 players, and you've got to get that working. It's just ridiculous. So to give him that contract is just great for the game, I think. Because they must be thinking, we might go down, but then we've got all these players, and who better to get the most out of them next year? If they can get a bit of experience, have a good year, have a bit of fun in the Prem, come back firing next year, and maybe the year after that could be their time to really cement themselves. That might be what they're thinking, and it's quite refreshing to have a chairman and a team thinking that far forward. I remember Burnley did it, didn't they? They got relegated. They kept Sean Dyche, and how good was he for them over the years?
Oh, absolutely. He was one of the top men for a long time for those kind of bottom clubs. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out for him in the end, but I guess it might have been different if they had kept him.
Yeah.
That's always the thing, isn't it? Well, I guess if we start with Forest then. So this comes after recent news just a couple of days ago that Steve Cooper's contract has been extended to 2025. Now, slightly odd timing, some might say. I mean, they've just been roasted 4-0 by Leicester, and then a couple of days later we get the news break that he has signed a contract extension. I mean, like you say, not his problem that they signed. Oh, Christ, they've signed every player available,
wasn't it? In the end,
yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. But if there was any team that you were kind of thinking, God, actually, I could see them sacking their manager straight away, really quickly, I think it would have been Forest. Like you say, he's had all of the money under the sun to kind of get the players in. We then see that they start fairly poorly. I mean, very poorly. They're bottom of the league. And they've got this fairly loose cannon in charge. I mean, the chap that's up top, the other side that he's got is Olympiacos. But, I mean, you watch him in the stands, he looks a bit all over the shop. I mean, he doesn't look like necessarily the most measured of characters, but fair play to him. I mean, it's nice to see, isn't it? Like you say, I think even if Steve Cooper goes back down after one season, surely he has been a successful manager getting Forest back to the Premier League, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think it's a real mature way of looking at things because who's going to come in and do a better job than him at the moment? You've got to bond all these players together, and then if you throw another variable of a new manager into it, that'll take him 3 or 4 games to even get the new manager in, and then he's got to do everything again. He's got to learn all these new players. He's got to learn about them whilst trying to bond them together. It just wouldn't have been the right decision. But at the same time, 95% of managers would have pulled the plug when you've lost
Yeah,
so many games and you have invested money. I think it was strange that they hired a new sporting director, didn't they?
yeah.
Seems like a strange time to do that. Probably would have been best to do that before the summer started, before they signed all those players.
Sporting director always seems to be now kind of the man that gets the mentions when we talk transfers, isn't it? You know, oh well, the sporting director was involved in getting X, Y, Z players in. So yeah, like you say, it is slightly strange that suddenly they've gone for the new sporting director at the time when maybe they could have done with him 6, 8, 10 weeks ago when they were going down the market for every player that was available.
Yeah, but if they do now go on if they lose the next 5, for example, then it might look like the wrong decision. So the to play devil's advocate, you could have held fire on the new contract for a bit of time. It was quite
Yeah,
early to do it, but I just feel like he's hoping that if he gives him that credit and he gives him the new contract, then that will just raise the confidence and it will take the pressure off slightly and hopefully help the whole process.
yeah, yeah.
But
No,
could you?
totally.
But but at the same time, if you just slap Big Sam in there now,
Hmm.
chance of them staying up would be greater, wouldn't it? So a lot of people would have taken that risk. I think,
Yeah,
as
I
boring
mean,
as cliched as that is.
has he backed himself into a corner there by giving him this new contract? Does he now have to stick with him regardless of what happens between now and? I mean, Christmas is normally the general rule, but between now and the start of the World Cup.
I think so because you do look a bit stupid if he gets rid of him in the net before the end of the year, not the football year, before
Yeah,
January. Then he just looks like he's jumped into a big decision incorrectly. He almost has to. He almost has to stick by him no matter what, really. Now, because there'd be no point in doing a Watford and getting rid of him with 4 games to go.
yeah.
Like,
Exactly. No,
what's the point?
exactly.
If you're gonna put your weight behind him now, you've got to follow it through to the end. And they've got some games coming up. They could win. They've got a game in hand on Southampton. If they win their next couple of games, which is obviously they've zero chance tomorrow. That's a free hit for them, isn't it? Playing Villa. Just don't worry about that. But then they got Wolves, who still might not have a manager.
Yeah,
Brighton, obviously a good team. Liverpool, well, to be fair, then they got Liverpool and Arsenal. But jokes aside, they're thinking, oh, we got Villa and Wolves
yeah,
next
yeah.
couple of games.
Two.
If we win those two, they end up on 10 points. They are sort of potentially winnable games for them, and they've got a game in hand, and that puts them up there with. Well, obviously they'll have games as well, but that'll put them. Liverpool are only on 10 points at the moment.
I love the fact we're using Liverpool as the bar now for teams that are down the
Yeah,
bottom.
but
Look,
it
you're
goes
only
just
six
shows,
points
isn't
off
it?
Liverpool.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
Your two
yeah,
wins. You've got 2 winnable games coming up, and you're only 2 wins off Liverpool.
yeah. And you would have taken that at
Game
the
in hand
start of
on
the season, right?
Southampton. Game in hand on Wolves. Yeah, you would. Again, just things change so quickly. But how different would that look if they win their next 2 games? They would go above Villa. They go above Wolves. And they would probably go above Southampton.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I probably agree with you there. Yeah. I mean,
But they really are 6 pointers. Again, another cliche. Because
yeah,
if they lose those two, they lose to a managerless team who's only 2 points ahead of them in the bottom three. When they lose against a Villa team who are just not scoring goals at the moment, then it starts to
a
get
team that
worrying.
just don't score.
A Villa
I
team was
mean,
just a bit dross.
where will you be watching the game tomorrow, Sean? Have you got any exciting plans for the
Oh,
game?
going to the pub to watch, mate. I'm going to soak in the atmosphere. I seriously doubt anyone will be there but me and my friends. But I hope someone will be there. I mean, I love telling this story, but you know when you watch a stream, well,
Yeah,
I'm assuming this. I wouldn't advocate watching an illegal stream, but sometimes you can, when you're abroad, you can find a stream, and
yeah,
you watch like a Liverpool or Man United, and it's just so slow, isn't it? No matter how good your internet is, it's so slow because so many people are watching it. But with
Yeah.
Villa, it's just perfect every time because it's only me and my brother watching it. So I'm hoping tomorrow
No, that
in
is
the pub will be a bit of an atmosphere. I don't think
yeah.
there'll be any Forest fans in Chichester. I'm hoping, but
Oh, I mean, Villa v Forest, watching it in a pub in Chichester. I mean, that sounds like that might get a little bit lively.
I mean, there's a lot of pressure on me to make it lively, I think. But what game? That would have been 20 years ago.
Oh, absolutely
That was
huge.
the English game, wasn't it? For a time.
Yeah, absolutely huge. Absolutely huge.
Have to win it. But
I mean,
Villa are just not scoring at the moment, are they?
no, no, they're very lifeless, aren't they? At the minute,
Hmm.
Villa. Unfortunately, it's I guess for a lot of fans, this looked like, well, this will just be a bit of a trial for Gerrard, and then eventually he will be the Liverpool manager. I mean, you're watching him now, and you're like, oh, actually, he might have a little bit of a long way to go.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, let's park Forest for a moment and the gloom and doom of Villa. Leicester, and we spoke a few moments ago about Klopp and perhaps his potential shelf life. And I know we've spoken a little bit about Leicester this season, but
Hmm.
one win to start the season, and that was against the team that now sit bottom of the table in Forest. Is it time that maybe they looked at replacing Brendan Rodgers? Is it the time now that you just say, look, thank you for your time, thank you for the FA Cup, thank you for the memories, but it's time to go?
I don't think so. I've thought a lot about this, and I slightly contradicted myself on 3 weeks ago when we had this conversation. But my reasoning is the season's a bit of a write-off,
Yeah.
and I don't think they're really in a worry of going down. I think over the course of the season, they won't go down. I think they'll be comfortably safe. So it's almost like, what's the point? You're going to bring someone else in, you're going to have to pay him 10 million to get rid of him or whatever in a season where you've got to rebuild anyway. I
Yeah.
would just let the season play out and then assess at the end of it. If he
Hmm.
if in 5, 6, 7 more games they're still down there, then it's a different story. But I just don't think anyone seriously thinks they will be. And again, that's the fun of football. You don't think it's going to happen, then it does. But it's quite a big thing to pay off a manager with that amount of money when you haven't got as much money as you have in the past, especially when you've sold a lot of your players and not really replaced, and you're still heavily reliant on Jamie Vardy, who's 35, 36, fresh out of
Yeah.
court with Wayne Rooney. So I just feel like who they're going to get? Is anyone going to do anything better? It's probably better the devil you know at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Brendan Rodgers has put up a lot of credit, hasn't he, at Leicester? And we saw just how good they can be last Monday when they hammered Forest, didn't they, 4-0? And James Maddison looked brilliant, and everyone was saying, why was he not in the England squad?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've been over England so much recently, but yet again, that goes to show that Southgate is not the one anymore. Um, it's just so interesting, isn't it, to watch a team like Leicester. And you do look through the team, and they have sold a lot of players, but they've still got a lot of quality in that side.
Mm-hmm.
They then come back yesterday. They get beat by Bournemouth after taking the lead early. I think it was about
Yeah,
10 minutes in, wasn't it? Patson Daka gets the goal. And you're thinking, here we go. Leicester, look, they
they're
maybe
back.
this is the time when they start kicking back into form. And then they can see two in about 3 minutes to Bournemouth. And all of a sudden, they're looking again now. Where's our next win coming from? I
Mm.
mean, Leicester's next fixtures, they are winnable. Their next three, I mean, we've mentioned Forest games. The next three for Leicester are Palace at home, Leeds at home, Wolves away. There's really, really big chances there to get some points. I mean, we saw Palace today. They looked awful and somehow got the win against Leeds. I mean, fair play to them. That was
Big
some
win, wasn't it?
win after, I mean, the first 30 minutes they could have been 3-0 down. They were getting
Yeah.
absolutely pelted.
Mm-hmm.
But they managed to get the goal through a brilliant free kick. Edouard gets on the end of it, and then end up getting the win through Eze. But in terms of Leicester, that is a must get at least 5 points from the next three, surely.
Oh, yeah. And then again, that will propel them up the league. But that pressure brings its own worries, doesn't it? Because if you don't get a result against Palace, and then you've got to get something against Leeds, even more so, and then you're playing I mean, they'll probably have a manager by then, won't they, Wolves? But all six
Yeah,
pointers. and you've got City to come, so it really can send them one of two ways, can it? But I think they'll beat. I think they'll beat Palace, beat Leeds. I think they'll get 7 points from those next
Okay.
three. I think it'll be the start of their season a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that would be a great return, and that might even get them up as high as sort of 14th, 15th, mightn't it, with 7 points in those games, because it is extremely tight. Sort of when you get out of the bottom three, you get from Southampton all the way up to Liverpool, so that's 17th to 10th. There's only 3 points between the lot. So, I mean, it is extremely close.
All of them are only a win away from getting out of it, apart
Yeah,
from Forest.
yeah, and Leicester, obviously.
Yeah, well, Leicester, if Leicester win and Southampton don't, then they're out because goal difference is similar.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Forest need
No,
a
of course.
couple, but you're right, it's so close. Villa are only on 8 points. Palace, even with that, Palace and Leeds. Palace had that good win today, and we were raving about Leeds at the beginning of the season. They're still only
Yeah,
on 9. What a win
yeah,
for Bournemouth, though, wasn't it? They're flying at the moment,
yeah.
unbeaten.
I mean, let's chuck Bournemouth into this mix actually, because we're speaking managers, and I think there should be a lot of credit given to Bournemouth's current. He's still only the caretaker manager, which is mad when you consider the run of form. But another win yesterday. How much should we be thinking that Gary O'Neill should be getting the Bournemouth job on a permanent basis?
How can he not really in any other job on the planet? He would be getting the role after doing so well in a
Yeah,
trial-ish period.
yeah,
They're on such a good run, and yesterday they came back. Not all teams do that. He's quite switched on, isn't he? They look like a good outfit all of a sudden. And again, they're 8th. They're 2
yeah.
points off the European spaces in a season where they've lost 9-0 in a game.
Yeah, I mean, Scott Parker goes immediately after the 9-0. Since then, they've won 2 and drawn 3. Now, they drew against Wolves, okay result, but it's a start. They then win 3-2 against Nottingham Forest after being 2-0 down, which was a brilliant win for Bournemouth.
Mm-hmm.
They then get point off Newcastle. Potentially unfortunate not to lose that, to be fair. Potentially unfortunate not to get the full 3 points there. They then draw against Brentford after having a penalty chalked off for VAR, and then get the win against Leicester yesterday. I mean, they play Fulham, Southampton in the next 2. Surely this is just the form's going to continue, right? And surely by the end of October, we're going to be saying Gary O'Neill, how many years has he just been given on his contract?
Well, you got to. There's loads of examples of a new manager boost, isn't there? But it just feels a little bit different with them at the moment. He just seems to know the players. I know he hasn't come from a different team, has he? And sometimes that's a really good benefit. He knows the players. He knows the ground. He knows the place. He knows how to get the best out of them. And again, they're just doing the right things, aren't they? What we said about Liverpool earlier, if you're not scoring, if you're not winning, go back to basics and don't lose. And that's
Yeah,
kind of what they do. They've had some really good draws, and then they've grown, and then had 2 wins thrown in as well. And it's just
yeah,
propelled them right up the league.
yeah, yeah.
But
I mean,
they are actually technically. They've got a manager, but they haven't got a full-time manager at the moment, and yet they're doing that. So it's a strange position to be in.
yeah, absolutely. But as we say, fair play to Bournemouth, and I think it is crazy that we are still saying he is only the interim manager. But I suggest that we'll probably be here in the next couple of weeks saying that he's been given the job permanently. I would be absolutely amazed if he hasn't been.
Surely, if not, then I'd be looking at him if I was Wolves.
Yeah, if not, we will start the Panenka Weekly endorsed petition for Gary O'Neill to be given the permanent contract.
Yeah, if you've ever earned something, that is it. And sometimes you have to put a bit of more of that into football. Sometimes, haven't you? Like you said earlier, owners are quick to get rid of managers sometimes. And when you're doing that well as in the interim role, just give him it, sign him up, give him a chance, a proper chance.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Sean. I really do, and I think there's a lot can be said about just giving your manager a bit of trust, just believing that he will come good. We know they've got the potential to do it, and I think
Yeah.
Gary O'Neill should be given the chance. I mean, talking now on to kind of the outlier of all of these teams, we've had a team now in Wolves that have pulled the trigger. They have sacked their manager, and I think former Sevilla manager, and this is going to be a one take only. But forgive me for maybe butchering his name. Lopetegui, I think, is maybe how we're going to pronounce it. We'll go for that. Former Sevilla manager, and we will go to say that he sounds like he's going to be getting the job.
Well, I did read that he's thinking about taking a year out.
Oh,
So
okay.
I don't know how's that change things because they're also not doing brilliant, are they? But he was a Spain manager, wasn't he,
Yeah,
for a
yeah,
bit?
this is what I mean. It's just crazy.
So he's got a lot of experience and a decent manager. Who, again, is not gone quite well. So I'm not sure. I think they got rid of him, didn't they, Seville? But it's coming
Yeah,
to a new country, a new league. Would that be the best thing at this point? I don't know. We said a couple of weeks ago that it don't really matter what happens with Wolves because they can't score goals. They haven't got a player who can score a goal at the moment, so it doesn't really matter what manager comes in. I don't think tinkling with the formation or the tactics or anything is going to make that big a difference until you can hit the January transfer window and just get some fresh legs in up front. They just need someone
yeah,
to score. They have got a really good team, haven't they? Got some outstanding players in there.
yeah. They
Just
really
need to get
do.
one
I
of their
mean,
two strikers fit. Hopefully, they must be thinking Diego Costa is the one. Must be thinking that. Get him fit, get him firing, get him annoying defences, get him on the ref's back. If he could get between 5 and 10 goals this season, that would be a great achievement for him, and that would pull them out of trouble, I think. But
yeah,
I, my gut feeling is that they're in big trouble, and they
yeah.
could be one of the best teams to go down if they don't really change things around. Because 6 points after 9 games is poor, isn't it, for them?
Yeah, I mean, it is always worrying. Generally, the teams that go down are the teams that can't score the goals, and that is certainly Wolves, isn't it? At the moment,
Yeah.
it's all pretty much all of the relegated sides have issues defensively, which is kind of where Wolves maybe buck the trend slightly. They are pretty decent at the back, but
Hmm.
they are absolutely horrendous going forward, and you're never going to pick up wins if you can't score goals. It's as simple as that, isn't it? And I don't really know where Wolves do go from here. I don't quite know what the prognosis on Jimenez is, but he has had a lot of injuries over recent years. Some very serious ones as well.
Yeah.
You then got Diego Costa, like you say. I don't really know how many games he's really going to be able to play. Is he going to be the kind of player that can play week in, week out? I mean, he's come from a free agency, which tells you kind of maybe all you need to know about how his career's gone over the last few years. And then they have been unfortunate, big money signing in the summer gets injured after only a few minutes of football. But what does the manager realistically? What can he do with that team? Neto's now injured, and it is tricky, isn't it? But again, is that just another example, a bit like Liverpool, where they've just not really invested in kind of upgrading the squad over the last few years?
I think so. They haven't scored goals for quite a few years now. They had a really good season last year, and they were strong the year before that. But it was based on a lot of 1-0s, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So most people could look at that and think, okay, if we throw a few more goal scoring attack, like proper goal scoring attackers in, I know they got some really good quality, but they don't have too much of a goal scoring end product. A lot of them. So if you could get a young goal scoring striker, that Chelsea striker would be the perfect example for me.
yeah,
Brozier,
bro.
or Bro, or
Yeah,
whatever. He's proven in the Premier League with what he did last year. Likely to not get much of a chance at Chelsea. You'd think at the beginning of the season, it's kind of worked out that way. So he'd almost be up. He'd love to have a year of playing it week in week out. I would assume, especially coming up to the World Cup. Why don't you
yeah,
just go hell for leather for him? But instead, they just seem to be buying similar players to what they've
yeah,
already got.
yeah,
It's
exactly
almost like
that.
Everton. Everton identified their problems and they purchased to solve those problems, and they did it perfectly. Centre back, centre mid, goals up front. They did the
Yeah,
best
I
they
mean,
can with what was on the market, and now they look a completely different team. Wolves could have done that. They haven't got too many problems. They've got way less issues than Everton coming into the season. Because it's strange to think, but if you put Mitrovic in that Wolves team, they'd be pushing top 6, wouldn't they? Probably, because they're that trustworthy at the back, and they've got enough quality to create chances. You just need someone powerful, strong, with a good finish, and that really sums up where they are. But it's summed up where they've been for the last year. So for them not to have bought what they needed, it's sort of their own fault. It's on them.
Well, I also think it's mad they got rid of Connor Cody. So influential for that side. I mean, how many teams do you know actually get rid of their captain?
No, I don't really get it. He was out of the team a little bit, wasn't he?
Yeah, but still, it was such an influential character to have around, right?
And Docker as well. He's been a good player for them over the years. He's come to Villa on loan.
Yeah, that's a weird transfer as well.
I know, it's really strange. So yeah, I think they put all their eggs in their sort of what they thought the future was going to be, but again, it's just defence-minded. It just seems so obvious. I don't get why a sporting director or their chairman is not just banging on as many good strikers' doors as possible. They were such a good team last year. They could attract talent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Might be a bit harder in January when they're down there, though.
That's the thing, isn't it? That the best time, I guess, to invest is the time when you're doing well. Yeah. It's the same as it's the same as any kind of business. The time to kind of try and look towards the future and look to grow is surely the times where you're doing well. You can't grow when you're doing badly. That seems to be sort of, we go back to the footballers and football teams are businesses. The time to try and grow, expand, get better is the times where things are going right. Does that not just seem really logical?
Totally agree. Because it also puts you behind other teams. So imagine the January transfer window was now, and you're a semi-decent new striker coming up in the world. You've got some good quality, you've got good confidence in yourself, and Bournemouth and Wolves are both in for you. So no-brainer, isn't it? You had Bournemouth.
Yeah.
So other teams will get those good players just because they're pushing higher up the league at this certain time.
And you've started so poorly, yeah.
Exactly, but I know you mentioned those 3 teams in particular, but we would be silly not to mention Southampton, who were just at 1 point off the relegation zone, and he's in a lot of difficulty, isn't he? He's in a lot of danger at the moment. Ralph Hasenhüttl.
Absolutely. I mean, the crazy thing is Hasenhüttl was linked with some massive jobs only a few years ago, and the decline has just been. It's just been absolutely insane. He was such a good manager for so long, and now it really looks like he could be one again that gets hit with the chopping block. And
I think he'll be next. We go. Look, based on everything that we just said, obviously Forest are not going to get rid of their manager. I don't think they'll get rid of Rodgers. Wolves already have. I think Gerrard will be given time, so he's probably the next one to go. They just rely on a purple patch each season, and they haven't had it this year. But even out of all that, they've only got 7 points, and one of those wins was Chelsea, so it could even be a lot worse for him. But I think he'll be the next to go. They haven't pushed on in the last couple of years too much. They do sort of just stutter a little bit and rely on a purple patch every couple of times in the season. So I just think it's time for a change there. Yeah. But again, they've got, looking at the next couple of games, West Ham, always a tough game. Bournemouth are in good form. Obviously, localish derby for them. And then Arsenal. So going into the World Cup, they got some hard games. Could be gone by then.
I wouldn't fancy them getting many points out of that list of games that you've just mentioned there. I mean, Southampton, they are a weird side, aren't they? They've got the potential to be brilliant. They've got the potential to be terrible. It is a lot of like those teams down the bottom. I mean, I can't believe just how tight the league is. You could see so many teams going down and so many teams maybe feeling like they've had an absolutely brilliant year and getting top half. It is just such an interesting season this season, and I'm really struggling to see where it's going to go, that bottom 3. You just cannot ever fathom that Leicester and Wolves will be 2 of the teams that go down. It just doesn't seem plausible.
Yeah, that's what's scary for Villa. So go on then, put some money on it. Well, don't put some money on it. Just what do you think?
The teams
What's the
that will
three
go
to go
down.
down? Yeah, now
I
based
mean,
now based on now.
it's so bad, isn't it? We did this only a few weeks ago, and I think I was still saying that Bournemouth will get the chop.
Yeah,
I think, speaking now, I do think Forest will go down. They
yeah,
do look really bad.
I agree.
I mean, Leicester, those next three are massive for Leicester. If you ask me now and then you ask me in 3 weeks' time and they've only got 2 points, then I'll be screaming Leicester. Southampton, I did say Southampton at the start of the season. I'm going to stick with Southampton as being one of the three. God, I mean the third team could be anyone. I think based on what I've just said a moment ago in terms of you need to score goals to stay in the league. Leicester have scored 15 so far this season in 9. That doesn't scream to me a team that's gonna go down. I think once that new centre back starts getting even more used to the Premier League and perhaps they do just get a little bit more defensively sound, Danny Ward stops chucking so many in. I think they'll be okay. I do think they'll pick up enough points, Leicester, and I think the next three
Yeah,
will get some of those points. I am going to say Wolves just on the basis that they have struggled with a lot of injuries and they are looking like they are severely lacking any quality in the final third. Forest and Southampton, I'm really confident will go down. I'm going to say Wolves as my final team. What about you?
yeah, I agree with the first two, Forest and Southampton. Really worried about Villa.
Yeah.
Really worried about Villa just because
They've only scored 6.
it's really poor for the amount of money we spent on that forward line. Coutinho hasn't actually been as bad as people say. He's been alright this season, but we just Watkins. He is so frustrating. He just doesn't score. He's so athletic. He's so good in getting in those positions. I just want to be his. I want to be his finishing coach, and I just feel like again, like what we said with Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's got everything in his locker that he needs. Just teach him how to finish. Just shut your eyes and hammer it in the bottom corner. He's such a bad finisher, and it just kills him. And for some reason, he's on adverts on my TikTok at the moment all the time. And it's just doing my head in. He's frustrating the hand at me. He needs to be dropped, and Ings needs to start playing every single game, and then I think we'll be all right. But it does worry me. I still think I look at Bournemouth, Fulham, Leeds, Brentford. I think they'll get dragged closer and closer down as the season goes on. But who's that? Who's that third team? I just hope it's not Villa. I still feel like Wolves will be alright. Leicester will be alright. Palace will be alright. Depressing, that, isn't it?
I mean, one good thing for Villa, tomorrow is a game in hand, right? If they get a win tomorrow, they're suddenly in the top half.
Yeah. And then you haven't lost in 4. 2 wins and 2 draws in 4 with City in that. All of a sudden, you look on paper, it looks like you're in good form. It's just you're not looking good in games. But that's why I don't think they go down. It's a tough one. I don't think any of them will go down, but someone has to.
Did not say a lot about Villa that you think they've been playing not very well, but they have been picking up results.
But it's not a bad thing, is it? A win and 2 draws.
Maybe on the day where they do really kick into life, they might go on a bit of a run and get 2, 3, 4.
Could do. You wouldn't be surprised. You wouldn't be surprised if they won 3 on the trot, especially with the players that they got. I feel like going forward, they have way more than a lot of the other teams around there.
They've got a lot more strength and depth than a lot of the other teams. Like you're saying, they've got the choice between Watkins and Ings. I mean, Watkins was pushing for the England squad not that long ago. Danny Ings, I was gutted when things didn't work out for Danny Ings at Liverpool. He promised so much. I thought he was brilliant when he first came in, and then he got a lot of injuries and sadly moved on. But he's just such a good player, Danny Ings. When he's on form, he's got everything. He's got a bit of pace. He's not bad in the air. He's really good in front of goal.
Yeah, he's a brilliant player, but he doesn't really play enough. He needs, and a player like him, he just needs to be playing all the time.
Yeah.
I think if we played him for the next 5 games, 90 minutes each game, I think it'd be Dross for the first 2, and then he'd build up, and then the rest of the season he would be flying.
Yeah.
So I don't think that will happen, but I hope it did. But just going back to that other question, I'm gonna do a strange one. I think Leeds will be the third team to go down.
Okay.
Despite their start.
Interesting. Well, that doesn't bode well, so I think USA might not do badly at the World Cup. They've got a few USA players in that team.
Hopefully not.
I mean, any final thoughts? I mean, as always, we would love to hear everyone's opinions out there on social media, on YouTube. Please do comment, tweet us, get in touch by whatever means possible. Let us know your thoughts. Who is going to be the teams that go down, the teams that will be in the Championship next year? What do you make of Arsenal and Liverpool? What happens now with Klopp? We will find out in the coming weeks. Everything will become clearer, but we would love to know what your predictions are as well. And, I mean, maybe we might even get our old friend back if we're now saying that Leeds are going down.
Oh. I love it when he pipes up. He's always got good things to say, so hopefully we should get him on.
I mean, that is what we love, right? I mean, this is what this whole podcast is all about. It is hearing people's opinions on football. It's such a tough game, and that's why we love speaking about it. And is there anything else, Sean?
Just please don't go down, Villa. Just don't. I do not want to go in that Championship again.
That will be perhaps where we leave it for today. If Forest win tomorrow night, we might not see Sean next week. It might be his turn to dip out.
Yeah, I'm going to Lanzarote.
Yeah, I mean, great place. Highly recommend if you're after a bit of autumn sun. But thank you everyone for listening. This has been episode 10 of Panenka Weekly. We will see you again next week.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.